All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about how the NFC South shaped out. We'll talk about both games. Buccaneers defeating the Saints 27-19. Falcons losing to the Panthers 44-38, which I did not expect that game to be as high scoring as it was. And I did think the Falcons were going to win, but they ended up losing that game. And look, for the Panthers, they ended the season strong, winning that game. Bryce Young looked really good yesterday. I think he threw 3 touchdowns in that game. He looked good. He looked good. But also, Michael Penix looked good, too. Made some good throws to Drake London. So, I think so far, so good with Michael Penix. The Falcons really need to improve their defense, though. It got absolutely shredded yesterday. And, the Panthers, they were missing Chuba Hubbard. So, I did take the Falcons to win and cover the spread. 8.5 was a big number, but the Panthers, they were missing Chuba Hubbard, and Miles Sanders has been a disappointment for them. He actually made some plays for them yesterday. You also had Blackshear running the football as well. The Panthers, they ended up running the ball for 155 yards. Miles Sanders had 66 yards on the ground. Blackshear had 47 yards on the ground. Bryce Young had 2 rushing touchdowns. Oh, he had three. Yeah, he had 3 passing touchdowns. So he had five total touchdowns yesterday. He had a good game. 25 of 34, 251 yards. No turnovers in the game. He was good. He was good. And then for the Falcons, Michael Penix, he went 21 of 38 for 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Bijan Robinson, he finishes the year with over 1,400 yards rushing and 14 touchdowns. He's going to be a great player for them. I mean, these first 2 years he's been solid. But Penix, he finishes his 3 games, 775 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Drake London had a big game, 10 receptions for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Falcons defense, no sacks on the day. They need to improve that defense. Total yards for this game for both teams, the Panthers had 425 yards of total offense. Falcons outgained them. They had 537 total yards of offense. But this game was just back and forth the whole time. The Falcons were leading 24-17 at the half. Michael Penix threw a pick on their first drive. That led to a Panthers touchdown. Then the Falcons missed a field goal. Panthers scored to make it 31-24. Then it was 31-31. Then it was 38-31 Panthers in the fourth quarter. Bryce Young had a 10-yard rushing touchdown. And then the Falcons did tie it. Bijan Robinson from 4 yards out scored. They went into overtime. The Panthers got the ball, and they went 10 plays, 70 yards, and Miles Sanders scored the game-winning touchdown from 1 yard out. So they finished the year 5-12. And I thought they were going to win 2 games again, I think. That's what I had them at. But you know what? Since Bryce Young took back the job from Andy Dalton, he looked like a different quarterback. And if you're a Panthers fan, you got to be very encouraged moving forward. If they can continue to build up this roster, and if Bryce Young could play like how he did after he got reinserted into the starting job, who knows? But you got to be encouraged by what you saw. He finished with 2,400 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks. So let's see what happens. But the Falcons, they ended up losing this game. And it didn't really matter what the outcome was going to be because the Buccaneers ended up winning. And that game was not pretty to start off. The Saints were kind of having their way with the Bucs defense early on. They were dominating time of possession early. Both teams exchanged field goals on their first drives. Then the Saints went up 6-3. They kicked another field goal. The Bucs then had a quick drive in the second quarter. Saints scored a touchdown. That made it 13-3. Spencer Rattler connected with Dante Pettis for a 5-yard touchdown. So yeah, that made it 13-3. Then it was 13-6. Bucs kicked a field goal. Then it was 16-6 at the half. Groupie kicked a field goal before the end of the half, a 39-yard field goal. So it wasn't looking good for Tampa early on. I was getting a little nervous. But then they opened up the second half with a touchdown drive. Baker Mayfield connected with Durham, the other tight end, for a 6-yard touchdown. So they were down 3. And then the Saints punted. Baker Mayfield threw a pick on the Bucs' next possession. That got tipped, which led to it being picked. And the Saints turned that into a field goal, 49-yard field goal from Groupie. Back-to-back punts by both teams. And then Baker led a 12-play, 82-yard drive down the field. They went for it on 4th and 8 from the Saints' 42. And Baker connected with Jalen McMillan for 33 yards. But then there was an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that pushed them back a little bit. But later in the drive, Baker, a nice throw to Jalen McMillan. Nice pitch and catch for a 32-yard touchdown on 1st and 18 from the Saints' 32. And that put the Bucs up by 1. And then the Saints punted. Bucs got the ball back. They scored another touchdown. Baker on 3rd and 14. This was a big play. Scrambled for 28 yards. And they got down to the 11. And he threw a backwards pass to Bucky Irving, so that counted as a run. And that was an 11-yard rushing touchdown. And that put them up by 8. Saints then turned it over on downs. Bucs got the ball back. Now, what was interesting is that they didn't just go into victory formation and take a knee. They wanted Mike Evans to get his incentives. And he got it. They completed a pass for 9 yards to Mike Evans. He reaches 1,000 yards once again. And that's how that game ends. And the Buccaneers clinched the NFC South. And they will be playing the Commanders on Sunday night. They played the Commanders first week of the season, and the Bucs won. I think it was 37-17 or 37-20, something like that. Let me just look back really quickly. But yeah, they picked up the win. It didn't look good. It did not look good early on, but Baker Mayfield and the Bucs were able to overcome the early deficit. They get the win, and they're in the playoffs once again. So yeah, 37-20 was the final score the first time the Commanders and the Bucs met. So how is this game going to go? Well, we'll talk about it throughout the week. But, yeah, so, you know, for a while there, it didn't look good for the Bucs because of all the injuries that they were dealing with. And, you know, they just kept losing these close games. And it looked like the Falcons kind of hit their stride. But then all of a sudden, Kirk Cousins just started to not play well. I mean, really started not to play well. And that kind of cracked the door open for the Bucs. They walked through it. They got Mike Evans back. Jalen McMillan has stepped up. Bucky Irving had a good year. And here they are once again. Now, I do have my concerns going into the playoffs. I think their defense is a concern that I have. And, you know, they're seeing the Commanders again, another rematch. And this is, you know, that was Jaden Daniels' first career start. You know, he's a different player now. Although, didn't look great in the game against the Cowboys yesterday before they pulled him. He was dealing with I think, what they say, leg soreness. And Marcus Mariota ended up picking up the win for the Commanders, and they are the 6th seed. So, yeah, we'll see how that game goes. It's going to be an interesting game, but I am concerned about the Bucs defense because, you know, they were kind of letting the Saints do what they wanted yesterday, and the Saints were missing Alvin Kamara, and there was no Derek Carr, no Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed, and, you know, early on, yeah, the Saints were having their way, but the Bucs stepped up when they had to. They got the stops that they needed, and Baker Mayfield in that offense, you know, got it going, and they picked up the win. This is one of the better offenses in the league. You know, Baker finished with his numbers, he has over 40 touchdown passes now. Or actually, no, I think he has, what is he at now? 41 touchdown passes, 16 picks, 4,500 yards passing. That is a really good year for Baker Mayfield. And what they had to overcome, you know, he was part of that. He was a huge reason for why they're in the playoffs. Bucky Irving, the rookie, 1,100 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. Had a good year for them. Mike Evans, he finishes with 74 receptions for just over 1,000 yards, 1,004 yards on the season. And look, this is a dangerous team going into the playoffs. Like I said, worried about their defense, but that's a team that you don't want to play against. Now, they're playing against the Commanders, and the Commanders are a good team, and they have a good offense as well. So, right early on here, I expect there to be a lot of points scored between those two teams. I think that's one of the underrated games of the weekend is that Commanders Buccaneers matchup. But yeah, no, for the Falcons, look, there's some things they're gonna have to improve on. They fell short defensively. That's something that they need to improve. They need to improve that unit. Um, particularly I would say front seven. Although, I mean, pretty much all facets of that defense got torched yesterday by Bryce Young. So that I think they need to go defensive heavy in the draft. Maybe you add another weapon. I mean, if the price is right. I mean, if you see a playmaker that you could bring in. I mean, whether it's free agency or the draft, I think they could address that. But I think defensively they need to make some improvements there. Michael Penix is going to be the starter moving forward. I liked what I saw so far, even if it was a small sample size. But, right now, he looks like he's going to be the latest quarterback from this draft class that's going to pan out. So, he's the guy, and, continue to surround him with talent. But I think the bigger issue for the Falcons, like I said, is defense. So, yeah, they fall short. I had them winning the division before the year started. I thought Kirk Cousins was going to be the starter throughout the whole year. That did not happen. The Buccaneers are in once again. They have now won another NFC South championship. Second year with Baker Mayfield. And this is I believe it's their fourth straight. Because Brady won the last two in Tampa, and then Baker has won the last two as well. Baker has carried the torch from Tom Brady. Just in that sense. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game, or these two games. What were your takeaways from them? Let me know in the comments. Before we go to break, just want to remind you guys, once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about Aaron Rodgers and his performance in what could have been his final game ever as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And we'll talk about, is it possibly the end? I know we've had that conversation so many times, but we're going to continue to have that. And we'll probably talk about it some more because obviously when he makes a final decision, we will cover it. And we'll also talk about him throwing his 500 touchdown pass as well. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.